at the end of the day, we all live on the internet, let's face it.
Yeah.
So understanding how the internet works, like growing an audience organically, making sure all our content, from what we find at the gallery is that artists they do their thing. So they'll make these beautiful, beautiful pieces of work. But what they need is someone to sort of bundle up their story. There are always galleries out there looking for artists all the time. So if you're an artist listening to this, we are looking for you. The advice that I'll give you is to help them find you. And also, once they find you, help them see you. And there are just I've got a few simple tips on how to do that.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Arts to Hearts podcast. I'm back again with another guest, and today I have Ocki from the Blue Shop Gallery. Welcome to the podcast, Ocki.
Thank you for having me. It's nice to be here. Always nice to chat to people, especially on a Monday.
Well, how's your Mondays like? That's a good point to start with. What is your Monday look?
Yeah, Mondays are good for us. So we are currently inside what was Blue Shop Cottage. So Blue Shop Cottage was the original gallery space, and it started off with me finding a shop house and converting it into a home. But then the sort of shop on the front became the gallery. So every Monday, when the gallery, Blue Shop Gallery, which has since opened, is closed Mondays, Tuesdays. So we work here as a team at the cottage on Mondays, which means we can just kind of go over. We also do lots of studio visits on Mondays. So it's a kind of much softer day of just checking up on sales over the weekend, checking in with artists. So it's kind of, Monday is a lovely cottage day.
Oh, wow. So when you say cottage, do you is it like a cottage? Is it also placed in a very scenic, I've never been to London yet, so I'm only imagining it through your words. What does it how do you define a Blue Shop Gallery different from a Blue Shop Cottage?
So so in 2016, I was looking for somewhere to live. And instead of sort of getting a flat, I basically found this beautiful glass-fronted miniature little shop in Camberwell, and it looked like a kind of Parisian sweet store, or a kind of a gorgeous little fantasy deli, somewhere where as a child you'd be kind of hands up to the window blowing steam into the glass. It was just so it's the most beautiful little blue shop, and it had this red and white awning, and I remember seeing it years before I found it online, being isn't that the most gorgeous little shop? Anyway, it was for sale, and I came to look at it, and I looked inside, and it basically just kind of opened up. So through the shop is a kind of 2-story miniature little house, which is, you can see right behind me there. And it wasn't until 2018 that that I started basically hosting exhibitions. So previously I was working in advertising, and then into brand, specifically art direction, creative direction. But what was missing from that life, as I'm sure many creatives that listen to your podcast will understand, is the kind of the sense of community, and also kind of doing hard work for good people. It felt like I was working unbelievably hard, but it was for these big corporates. I was working all the time, and there wasn't much sort of joy left in that. As much as I love designing dog food brands, it was just missing something. So when I found this space, I was told that the shop bit, so not the cottage bit, which is back there, but the shop bit that I'm sitting in, had to be used commercially. So I thought that was quite fun, because I was like, well, we could rent it out to people, we could do gigs, so initially we did pop-ups for sort of charities. We had a bike shop, we had a cocktail
Wow.
bar, a flower shop. I did a lot of like gigs here with lots of like local Southeast musicians, which were wonderful. And it kind of started, that community feeling started to kind of drip back in to my work. And it wasn't until we then hosted the first art show, which was Rose Electra Harris in April 2018, where my love of design, my love of community, my sort of want to use the space, use this beautiful space that I found, all came together. And it was quite, I mean, people talk about these moments in their life that were quite like clear and kind of everything slowed down. But I was kind of standing opposite the crowds, way over there. So it wasn't until we hosted an exhibition for Rose Electra Harris in 2018 where all these things came together. So it was accessible art market. It was young people getting together. I think that's another crucial part of what we do.
Yeah.
We're not your stereotypical white wall hostile gallery. We
Yeah.
are very open door policy, and we run that thing through our open calls, we run it through our private views, and at that point in time it was a very clear point in my personal sort of life where I was like, this is the thing, because I could apply all my like design marketing,
Yeah.
if
All
you
your skill
will.
sets.
Yeah. And then it's just gone from there. So kind of fast forward 6 years, we've now opened our new gallery just up the road in Oval, which
Okay.
is 1,100 square foot, split over 2 floors. We can have an online show of like 300 artworks, as well as a solo show upstairs, solo show downstairs, as well as doing an art fair. So it's just
Wow.
been about kind of growing the potential of what we're doing so that we can, satisfy collectors' needs, we can satisfy artists like needs, and I like to think that we've always got an open
Hmm.
ear,
Very, very
and sort
interesting.
of heart and mind to what people are looking for. Yes, so Blue Shop Cottage opened in as a gallery in 2018, and then we ran solo shows, group shows here for about 4 5 years. Obviously, lockdown then happened, which was significant in terms of, well, it was actually very significant for the art world
Yeah.
generally, as lots of people know. So we kind of had to pivot and went online. And then from that experience online, we actually interviewed artists online every single day of lockdown. And then we also launched our now like annual online open call called Works on Paper.
Yeah.
And then after the success of all of that, that kind of enabled us to grow an audience, not only of artists, but an audience of collectors as well, globally.
Yeah.
Um, and it wasn't until December 20, end of December 2021 that I was like,
Okay.
right, we have outgrown this space. We need more space because in here, this room that I'm in, which is the original gallery, is only like 4 by 4 meters, like a cube, basically.
Okay.
So the square footage is very limiting. So we were
Yeah.
having to like hang paintings on the backs of doors and things like that. So
Yeah.
the dream was always to get a big new gallery. I think it just
Okay.
happened quicker than I
You
would
thought.
have ever imagined, to be honest.
Yeah.
So yeah, so in 2022, November 2022, we managed to find this space up the road in Oval. It was perfect. It was like on the road. It's got these beautifully high ceilings, so 3.6 meter high ceilings, all this lovely natural light. It meant that, artists, collectors could come and like hang out there. A lot of emerging galleries, because of
Are
like,
also there.
well, limitations, they have sort of smaller spaces. A lot of them are in basements, a lot of them on third floors. Whereas I was quite adamant that I didn't want to have those things limiting us. So we
Yeah.
did search for quite a long time. It wasn't until about May 2022 that we
Okay.
found this space, which was previously an old cafe, and
Oh,
it was
wow.
absolutely horrid to say the least. And
Oh,
so we could kind of put our mark on it. So everything from like choosing the warmth of the floorboards, the warmth of the walls, like a warm white, so not just a hard white, not just halogen
yeah.
lights, choosing the warmth of the lights, making sure that we have enough storage, making sure that we have enough. So it was a really, and making sure that we've got enough seating. I think there was lots of feedback that we got from various collectors and
For
artists
your
about
the cottage.
the, yeah, yeah, to how to kind of design the space so that it's sort of comfortable and for people who want to experience a painting and to experience a big painting, you want to be comfortable, you want to be able to sit down.
Yeah.
So we designed a bench that allowed people to sit on it and look at paintings on either side of it. So it's like a backless, curved S-shaped bench,
Oh,
which can be moved into different uh, like sort of designs. So it can either be like that,
yeah.
like an S, or when we're doing talk, it can be a C shape like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a really fun way of coming at a brand new space with all the knowledge we'd kind of gleaned from the cottage and then sort of applying it, feeding it in to the gallery.
Oh, wow. Tell me something. I'm curious to know. Like, like you said, you were also in advertising and then, branding, and like you were also like a designer. My first question, which
Mhm.
is a question I ask to most of the people who are like creative themselves, did you ever thought of becoming an artist yourself? Did you think you had the knack for it? And then the second part of the question is then I have also been working in, design and branding, and I was a fashion designer actually. I still am. I don't know how to call was and is, but
Mhm.
being a designer yourself, that is such a different job role versus once you join a gallery or you start a business. It is a
Mhm.
different ballgame. Like, these are two very different skill sets. Like how being a designer can help you become a,
Mhm.
let's say a better understanding appreciator or a galleryist, or like, someone who can appreciate and connect others with art. But it's also like a lot of sales, it's a lot of marketing, it's a lot of management and
Mhm.
hiring and like all of those things. I want to understand what was your journey and experience with both of these things.
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. I mean, I started off, funny enough, at St. Martin's doing fashion design women's wear. That's like how
Oh,
I also
wow.
started.
Wonderful.
But for
I did it from
me, I mean,
boys, and I did women's wear myself.
nice. Yeah, I mean, I think there's also something about like, maybe being girls back then, what is I didn't know anything about the creative industries. I'd never been told
Same.
about them ever. And one of the things that I like to do, another reason why I like to do these podcasts is to kind of get the word out there. I'm
Yeah.
constantly talking to young people. I think children, young adults and children are some of them are innately creative. And I think that sort of innate thing that a lot of young people have, it does open up many doors to all these different jobs. And I think unless they know what they are, I think it is hard. I mean, lots of my peers, whether they're kind of doing knitwear for McQueen or whether they're running a graphic design studio, I think a lot of us have come into it and then we've wiggled around for 10 years. A lot of us have said like we've wiggled and wiggled and wiggled, and then the next 10 years you're really crafting where you've
Yeah.
landed.
Yeah.
And so
Oh,
for
I
me,
completely relate to that.
yeah, so I think, and I think and I hope that young people can hear that and feel reassured by that, because I think
Yeah.
often we're
Feel
made to think
confusing.
that as a 15-year-old you go, I want to be a typography designer. Well, of course, actually it doesn't happen like that. It's normally this kind of wiggly career path with
Yeah.
creative jobs,
I
but
think
but
now
for
it is
me,
so much more
yeah.
possible. Like, a lot of, like you
Mm,
said, like we know there's a job role that exists, which is called like, let's say, um, typography designer. I know for myself, I didn't even know, like, It was just being a designer. Then it also, then I got familiar with okay graphic design, and then like it was there wasn't like a very, like there was not a lot of clarity on so many job roles that we have today, and a lot of them have evolved in today's time, and like they're only getting better. Like there's an illustrator who does illustrations for corporates also, but then there's also a typesetting, there's also editorial designers, and like there are book cover designers, and then so many different ones. And in the beginning, I you just don't know. You feel like okay, I'm good at something and I will just be a designer. Then you only get better and specific of what you want to do.
Yeah, no, that's right. And sort of for that reason, me and loads of other like creatives that actually just like published this book called I Want to Be a Creative, and it's
Oh,
basically a book for young people, like really young. It's designed in a way like for children, so
oh
that,
wow.
for example, like my niece is just she's incredible at drawing, and she just is. If you compare her to her peers, she's got this really great sense of like space and color. And you know let's say 2 or 3 generations ago, that kind of talent or skill might have been overseen, but now we've got so much a better understanding of these jobs. And I think it's really important that you know, they understand. I mean, maybe if I'd have known what, like, illustration, like running a gallery, like brand design, art direction was, I probably, let's face it, wouldn't have studied fashion design.
Yeah,
But that was my way into the amazing world that is, the, the arts and design and,
yeah,
and creativity. And I think you end up just you end up sort of veering away from something because it might not be quite right for you. So advertising was fantastic. I cut my teeth there, learned all about like typesetting and like quick kind of impacts, and like
yeah.
what
Also
messages
learning
are you
business with
trying to get out there.
creativity, I think.
Yeah, and I come from a family of like entrepreneurs, so I think that's kind of my upbringing. So would I ever have been an artist? No, because I don't. I'm much more like making something for a thing. So that's
Hmm.
a designer anyway. But then I think you do advertising and you're missing the heart and soul. So then you want to do that thing for people that are good, or like people that need your skill set. And actually, what we find at the gallery is that artists they do their thing. So they'll make these beautiful, beautiful pieces of work. But what they need is someone to sort of bundle up their story,
Yeah.
kind of uh, then put it into a bundle and like present
Brand it
it
for
to
them, put
people.
it, yeah, package it well for
Exactly.
them.
So, and I take that very seriously because it's very important that we do that well. We're not here to kind of do it badly. And
Yeah,
at the end of the day, we all live on the internet, let's face it.
yeah,
So understanding how the internet works, like growing an
yeah,
audience organically, making sure all our content from still now into moving video and all these kind of things. These things are really important, like typography design, layout, information design, even how we design the gallery. Like these
yeah.
things are things that speak to my like sort of past life, if you will. But also, I think the fact that I haven't come from a gallery background and I don't
Yeah,
do things necessarily like they were done pre-internet, I
yeah,
think is actually an advantage in a way.
yes,
So
absolutely.
yeah, so I get to do all the things that I love, but yeah, I've just wiggled around a hell of a lot to get there.
What was the hardest thing for you to figure out while starting these galleries?
Oh, the dog. There he goes. Mole,
Yay.
on your bed. That's the dog. I think the hardest thing about doing this job is is the fact that Mole is the fact that you are you are basically obviously selling paintings,
Yeah,
and paintings are emotional outpourings of they are a very pure emotional thing. But what we are doing with them is that we are selling them to people who sometimes are wanting to invest, or they're buying them for the wrong reasons, if that makes sense. And so I
Yeah.
think what is hard about the art world as a industry or as a big commercial entity is that you are selling and making a commodity, if you will,
Yeah.
out of something which is a very pure thing. So, if a poet writes this beautiful poem about an ex-lover or his mother or something, it's like then turning up and being like, right, come on then, let's sell this to the world. There's there's something that doesn't quite sit well with that, but
Yeah.
yet that is what we do, and we want to do it really well. So it's really important that we do that with the utmost integrity, that we make sure that the collectors who are buying the paintings are doing it for the right reason, that they're going to look after the work, that we look after the work, that the artist is looked after, because at the end of the day, artists aren't just some factory. They are these individual, beautiful, talented, sensitive people who are looking to be supported, understood, heard, and also the fact that they're all so different and they've all got completely different needs, they've all got completely different experiences, um, and all their work has different needs and different like requirements as well. So,
Yeah.
you know, from show to show to show, month to month to month, you are like starting again every time. Um, and so that can be difficult sometimes, but it's
Absolutely.
also brilliant because it keeps you so engaged and so sort of endlessly fascinated by the materials they're using or their subject matter. And one
How
of the
do you?
great things that we love to do, is we go and visit these artists in their studios all over the
Yes,
world,
that's what I
and
was asking.
we
Yeah.
get to like peer
See
in.
behind the scenes and like the real mess. But
Yeah.
how do you find your artists? Like, what is your relationship with artists look like for you? And how do you find your artists? And what is that moment like you feel like? How do you figure out this is the work that you want to support, and this resonates with you, or um, how does that work for you?
Well, I mean, I think the simple answer is I show work that I connect with. That's the simple answer. So
And what would you, then I
if
will
you
ask you
imagine
another
how,
question is what do you connect with then? How do you know, like, I think, you and I both know, a most asked question would be artists feel, and which is not everybody can become an independent artist. It is not easy. It's a hell lot of work. And that is why a lot of artists seek gallery representations and shows and exhibitions and everything else. But also the,
hmm
it's the egg and the chicken situation where they don't
hmm
know how to find representation or more work, versus everybody keeps telling artists that, the more exhibitions you get, the more visibility. And, it's like this. How would
hmm
in your experience or your advice on how do you find artists, how do you resonate with them, what do you seek out to,
hmm
and what speaks to you the most, and then how do you decide if this is something
well,
that you'd
I
like to
think
do?
like my advice to artists is always the same, and um, it is to focus on your craft. I mean, there are always galleries out there looking for artists all the time. Like, so if you're an artist listening to this, like, we are looking for you. That's the
Yeah.
first thing. That is just a fact. So we are looking for you. Like, that's, we have to show new artists. We're constantly looking, especially emerging galleries, and obviously in London, here in London, here in the UK, in New York, and any of the kind of big cities, there are galleries looking for emerging artists. So the advice that I'll give you is to help them find you, and also once they find you, help them like see you. And there are just some, I've got like a few like simple tips on
Okay.
how to do that. So the first thing would be to focus on your work. So, if you're making works on canvas, make sure that they are, for example, incredibly well stretched. make sure that, you know, you haven't got like pins and screws sticking out, because these things, like an unstretched canvas that hasn't been done really well, it just makes a gallery think this person doesn't take themselves seriously.
Yeah.
The second thing, once you've made, let's say you're making a painting.
Okay.
Once you've made that painting, how are you documenting it? So I'm looking at, like, for example, Instagram profiles, degree shows, other exhibitions all the time, like all the time. That's my life. That's what I do all the time. How are you going to stop me in my tracks? Like, if
Yeah.
I see a beautifully high res image of like a 45-degree angle on a painting. So, for example, over here we've got an oil on board in a sapele tray frame. We've got a work on paper, like oil on paper. We've got chalk, I think that's soft pastel on paper, loads of different things. These are all like 4 British female artists. But I'm looking at these things. I'm looking at the material, how it's been treated. I'm looking for that, like, the finish on things, the
Yeah.
edges of things. It sounds sort of silly, but I find
No,
these things to be
absolutely.
fundamental because it shows a real amount of care. And like even something as simple as like making sure your photos are clean, like really sharp,
Yeah.
sharp images. And people say, but you know, I've only got an iPhone. Okay, I get it. Cameras are expensive. Go and ask your mate, make him a cup of tea, and say, can I borrow your new iPhone? Because the new iPhones will take, they are all you need for these things.
Yeah. That's
Um,
true.
and obviously, it goes without saying that, like Instagram, you know, I would argue that you don't even need a website. I don't think you even need to have gone to art school. You know, if you have an incredible Instagram documenting these beautiful high res images of, you know, your beautiful drawings or your beautiful etchings or your stunning paintings. And another tip, you're entering open calls. Now, I understand open calls are expensive. I
Expensive.
personally don't support open calls costing money. I do sometimes get in trouble with people for saying that, but I do stand by it because our open call is free, absolutely
Mm.
free, and we don't need to charge money because we then sell artwork. And most of
Mm.
these open calls, that is the kind of ambition for
Yeah.
them. But in fact, they're not selling the artwork, they're making money by the entry fee. So,
Yeah.
um, you know, maybe choose one or two that you really love that you can pay for if you can afford to do so. If not, you know, make your work, get your Instagram looking really, really sharp. Ask your boyfriend, ask your girlfriend, ask your mum, ask your gran, does this look great? And, or like, message us being like, does this look great? Or message another, you know. So then you do the open calls. And then the other thing, which I appreciate is harder, is, you know, get out to the shows, go and introduce yourself to people, because
Mm.
I can't tell you, A, how I understand that's difficult, because funny enough, even I find some of those social situations
You're on
difficult.
six.
But
Yeah.
if you are there, if you are always there, we have offered solo shows to people who've come to our gallery over and over. And then I'm just like, oh, come on then, what are you making? Show me your work. And you know, if those 3 things, if you're out and about, and you don't even need to be out and about in a physical way, you could just be out and about, like commenting on people's posts on Instagram.
Yeah.
So like, get out there,
Yeah.
make sure your page is looking amazing, but also focus on your craft. Like, if I look at an Instagram page and it's got pictures of their mum, their dog, um, a ceramic jug, and a painting, I'm going to be like, what is this? I,
What
I
do
don't
you do?
understand. What is this? You know,
Yeah.
it's the same way, you know, my creative directors at advertising would say, no one gives an F about your advert. No one gives an
Yeah.
F. They don't care. So, and to an extent, this is different because I'm saying we are looking for you. So we want
Yeah.
to find emerging artists, but you guys have got to also help us, like, believe in you. And so I think, because I'm always amazed, and like I've become a little bit more, I guess, vocal about these things because artists say that they do want to have feedback. Um,
Yeah.
but it goes back to that initial question about like what's difficult about the art world. It's like, look, if you don't want to sell your work and you don't want it to like go into global collections and into museum things, then this advice is not for you. I think you do
Yeah.
exactly what you want. But
Yeah.
if you do want that, it's so, these things really matter. Like they really, really do. It's like, that old thing of like the devil's in the detail. Um, and yeah, for example, and like things like if you're a figurative painter, go to a life drawing class. Don't draw from photos. Get out there. I
Yeah.
think that get out there advice, it can sometimes come with a price tag, but it could be, why don't you host a life drawing class and take it in turns to be the model, or like host an
Yeah.
exhibition for your mates? Like, I think often the art world, it feels so inaccessible, and I totally understand. I really do. Like, studios are expensive, art school's expensive, everything's expensive, but also that initiative, like if I as a gallery gleam that
You
that
can
person
also get
hasn't gone to
lucky.
art school,
Yeah.
yeah, you can use it to your advantage. Like we
Yeah.
always want to tell a story. Like, Jess Allen, who's one of our, most
Yeah.
successful kind of exports, she was making work in her studio for decades without any shows. But she was grafting away. And actually the fact that she's not 22 and just come out of, an arts university in London, that was original and brilliant. So I think use your own story
Nice.
as the thing that like makes you appealing. Don't shy away from it. And I think that's the same. Like if you're not in London, or if you're in a country or a city or a village that is like not easily accessible or whatever, the internet is your friend. Use
Yeah.
it as a tool. So yeah.
Lots of brilliant advices here then. Wonderful. I think you have some great points. Like, um, I think a lot of times we all know the answers. A lot of times I think the barrier is it's not knowing what to do. It's also
Mm.
breaking those molds and taking those first few steps. Putting
Yeah.
yourself out there. I was reading this article the other day. I think it was an interview or something, which was like, there was a time when it was about the artworks. Now on the age of internet, it has also become the artist personality, and that's a lot of that is like another complex layer that is being added on how people look at artists, how artists are being discovered, and how art is being shared, which also leaves a lot of people struggling on the internet, which they don't feel like you know putting themselves out there so much. But I also feel like if you do find the rhythm, staying true to yourself, there are all kinds of artists. An artist that was on a magazine cover, I love. She's a beautiful Indian artist, very successful, Ritika Merchant. And she's so successful, but if you go and see her Instagram, you will only see images of just her desk and what's she whatever she's painting at that moment. And
Hmm.
there are artists who do show a lot of who they are. Like, I think we all need to speak our language. That is the one that we can speak best. And then there are people who would resonate and who would speak to it. But yeah, Instagram is like, internet is, um, it does take a bit of, you know, time and effort and understanding, and knowing truly it is like the internet needs to understand you, and you need to understand the internet to be on the same
Yeah.
page. But once you do that, I think it can really make a difference for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, thank you so much, I really appreciate this. Do you want to share anything about your upcoming shows at the Blue Shop Galleries? What's happening, anything new, any new artist? How can we find you, how can we support you?
Yeah, so as you mentioned earlier, we have our new, well, relatively new, I mean, it opened 2 years ago, but relatively new gallery space. You can find us on Instagram at Blue Shop Galleries. We now, now we've been going for 6 years, we now represent four artists, Orla Kane from Glasgow, Kaya Stump from Norway, Vivian McDermott from Edinburgh, and Roya Barham, who lives and works here in London.
And
And yeah, so we're kind of moving forward with a kind of more kind of permanent roster of artists, but also every month we'll have between one and two solo shows. We've got lots of exciting art fairs coming up. We're showing new work by Leora Tissue-Prout at Woolwich Contemporary Print Fair, which is absolutely
Yes,
incredible for people who love
yes.
print. We'll be
Congratulations.
showing mostly monotypes, so all
Okay.
one of one works. I think we've got a few short editions, like one of fives by Ned Elliott. But that's coming up next month. We've got an incredible solo show by a Scottish painter called, well, he's not Scottish, but he's from working in Scotland, called Sam Douglas. He's actually originally from Somerset. So that's also November. We've got a brilliant, a very exciting group show, which we haven't sort of spoken about, with some amazing artists that we have worked with in the past, who are all going to be showing in a group show in December. We've got a big art fair coming up next year. And then, yeah, we've just got loads of amazing
Lots
solo
of things.
shows. And then I think yeah, we've got busy, 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 always so busy, and just like out there kind of trying to, as I say, like source artists and like work with our represented artists and like getting them from A to B kind of thing, and finding their audience out there globally. And then we also, for any artists that are listening, like, I touched on how to get out there, how to, get out of a, let's say, like a negative kind of thing, and like get into good practice. We have our Works on Paper 7 open call that will be open in January.
Okay.
It's free. I obviously have said that a lot of times, but it really is, it's completely free. You can apply on one email. So if you're listening and you're an artist and you want to get yourself out there, you want to do something for yourself, I think that's often the way. It's like, I think there's so often with this creative kind of mindset is a kind of doubt sort of thing as well. And I totally get that. But why don't you set yourself a task? January is a great month for this. Everyone's kind of buckling down anyway.
Yeah.
Christmas is gone. Why don't you apply to Works on Paper 7? Because even if you don't get in, like, we've had people apply 3 times and get in fourth time. We've had people apply 2 times and get in the third time. But
Mhm.
you'll get an email from us. You might make the shortlist. You might,
Yeah.
you might get in. You never know. Like, just give yourself that chance, because we
Yeah.
have had so many artists like go from Works on Paper to, you know, Lee Heidi, who's now represented by Pippi Holdsworth, Mary Herbert, who's now showing globally, George Wilson, Sophie Valence-Cantor, Leora Tissue-Prout, Alexis Solgrave, Florence Hutchings, Amy Bieger, Natalie Grelier, Catherine Repko, Sarah Cunningham, Caroline Absher, Kemi Honorable. All these people have started their careers through just picking up that idea of like just making some work on paper, giving yourself that opportunity,
Yeah.
because that is exactly why we keep it free. We keep it free for you guys. So yeah, that would be like my main thing, would be to like have a think about applying.
Perfect. I will make sure that we add all the details of the gallery of everything that you've mentioned. Thank you so much, Okay. It was very nice speaking to you, and I hope to see you soon.
Brilliant. No worries. Thanks so much.
Thank you.